Welcome back to the part 2 of our Dartless Corset drafting tutorial. So if you've not watched the part 1 of this video, do kindly refer back to our channel and you definitely see the part 1 of this video on our channel. So with that being said, for our cup, you're going to be needing a 12 inches pattern paper, 12 inches as your depth and 12 inches as your width. Now go ahead to roll out a straight line at that point, and of course go ahead to mark out a straight line at this point. So remember on our dartless corset, we took out 7 inches as our over bust point or our off shoulder point. So now you're going to be placing that value on that starting line. So basically, this is exactly what I'm doing at this point. So like I said, I took out 7 inches. And I'm going to be placing 7 inches at that starting line and we'll be marking our client's distance of shoulder to bust point. And next is our client shoulder to under bust point, which is this. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect all those points to form a straight line. So we've done that for our bust point. And lastly, this is it for our under bust point. With that being done, we'll go ahead to label our pattern. But before we do that, go ahead to cut out your pattern paper from your under bust point line, which is this. Now proceeding on, this part will be our center front and this part would be our off shoulder or our over bust point line. Now this is our bust point and lastly our under bust point. So please take note of this line, our center front, our off shoulder point, which is our over bust, our bust point rather, and lastly our under bust point. Now at our bust point line, we're going to be dividing our client's nipple to nipple or bust span by 2. So mine is 9 inches divided by 2. I would go ahead to impute that value on our bust point. So placing our tape from that center front line, you'd go ahead to marking the value of your nipple to nipple divided by 2. So now you're going to be taking that value all the way up to your off shoulder or your over bust point and down to your under bust point. I hope you understand. Go in with your straight ruler and connect it into each other to form a straight line. Now we're going to be marking 1 inch all round on the 4 cardinal points. Placing our tape from our bust point would come up by 1 inch, to the center front by 1 inch, to the side front by 1 inch, and lastly to our under bust point by 1 inch. So basically this is what you're going to be doing. You'd get to understand the reason why we did all of this. Now for our under bust point tightening, we're going to be labeling our pattern first. So that is our center front and this other part is our side front. So like I said, for our under bust point tightening or contour, we're going to be imputing 1.5 inches on both sides. So that is for our center front and now this is for our side front. Now at your center front line of your bust point, you're going to be coming up by 1.25 on both the upper side and the lower side, which is this. So now at your side front, still at your bust point line, on your bust point line, you divide your nipple to nipple by 2 and go ahead to add an extra 1 inch to that measurement. So now mark it on your bust point for your side front. And now we'd go in with our straight ruler to connect that point into each other to form a straight line. Now with that being done, for our that input or intake on this part, we're going to be coming up by 1.25 on both the upper side and the lower side of our side front for our bust point. So just like we did for our center front. And now for our off shoulder or our over bust point, we'll be intaking 0.25 or you could equally use 0.5 on both sides. Now with the aid of our curve ruler, we're going to be connecting from our under bust point line all the way up to that 1 inch that we came down with on our bust point. So please basically watch the way I'm placing my curve ruler and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So having drawn our under bust point curve, at our center front, we're going to be blending from the 1.25 inch that we came down and up on both sides into that 1 inch that we have imputed at our bust point. So please, you're going to be going in with your slightly curved ruler and you'll be connecting that point all the way in. So basically watch the way I'm placing my curve ruler and please go ahead to replicate same for yours. I hope you understand. Now on our side front, we'd go ahead to replicate that same process. So exactly what we did for our center front, we'd go ahead to replicate that same process on our side front. Having gotten our dart input at that point, now for our over bust or our off shoulder point, we'll be blending that point all the way in. So if you marked 0.5 inch at this point, blend it all the way into that 1 inch. If you had marked 0.25, still go ahead to replicate same. Now with the aid of our curve ruler, we're going to be drawing out our curve for our under bust point on our center front. So this is it for it. Please watch the way I placed my curve ruler and do go ahead to connect from that point all the way down to your under bust point. So having done that for my center front, I would go ahead to replicate the same process on our side front. Now, at our off shoulder or our over bust point, come down at that point by 0.25 or 0.5 inch. Now, on your bust point, on the side rather, you're going to be coming up by 0.25. So, whatever you had imputed at the center front, go ahead to use that same value for your side front. So, now I'm going to be connecting from that dart intake point all the way down to that 0.25 that we came down with on our off shoulder point. So this is basically to have a bit of a curve for our cup. So having done that for our center front, we'd go ahead to replicate that same process for our side front. Now with this being done, we've successfully imputed all our basic darts. So I'm going to be shading this point off. So all the shaded points are the points which we'll be eliminating off from our cup. So this is basically our dart. Like I said, we've gone ahead to shade all the parts, and please go ahead to label your pattern paper. My center front 1, my side front 2, and my center front 3, and lastly my side front 4. Please ensure to make an arrow at this point so you do not get it mixed up when you're cutting through your pattern paper or when you're eliminating your darts. So please basically watch the way I'm cutting off this cup, and do go ahead to replicate same for your dart elimination. So at this point, I won't have to say much. Just sit back and watch the way I cut through and eliminate all our darts on all the sides. And voila, your cup is almost ready. So this right here is the reason why we needed to make all those arrow and of course label our pattern. So you could see the arrow served as a guide, and equally the labeling equally helped us to arrange it in the right proportion. So please pay attention to this part. Remember, this is a 3-piece corset, and now we have a total of 4 pieces. So the lower part of our cup, we're going to be keeping that aside, and the upper side of it, we're going to be making it into 1 piece to create our 3-piece cup. So like I said, this is a 3-piece cup. So we're already having 4 patterns on all the sides. So like I said, we're going to be keeping the lower side and we'll be working on the upper part of our cup to create it into a 1 piece. With that being said, go ahead to reintroduce your plain sheet of your pattern paper at that point, and now pay attention to this. So you see that point, you're gonna be overlapping it a bit on each other, so ensuring that both the upper side and the midpoint aligns perfectly. Now go in with your gum, or maybe if you have a solo tape, do go ahead to use it and mask it down on at this point. Now go ahead to cut out the excess of your solo tape. Now with this being said, you have your 1 piece. That's your 1 piece for your upper side, and you have the remaining 2 pieces, which makes it a 3-piece cup. Now if you have an intention of transferring this into a fresh sheet, this is exactly what you're going to be doing. Just reintroduce that to your upper side of your cup on a fresh sheet of pattern paper, And please go ahead to trace out all the points. So please pay attention to the way I'm tracing out all my points, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. And this right here, you have your one piece in a fresh sheet of pattern paper. So this is it. This is definitely what it's going to look like. So I'm going to reblend all the points to get the consistency of all the curves that we've transferred into our new sheet of pattern paper. So before you go ahead to cut out the side, please go ahead to relabel your pattern all over again. So it's very, very important that you label at every given point. So this is the downside of it, which will be joined to the two remaining parts of our down piece cup. And now this is the upper side of it. This is our center front. And lastly, this is our side front. So like I said, please ensure to always label your pattern at every given point. So go ahead to cut out the excesses that we have on all those sides, which is basically what I'm doing at this point. With this being done, our 3-piece dip cup is ready. So go ahead to bring back this other pattern paper just to ensure that all the points are aligned perfectly. So this is basically it. You can see all my points aligned perfectly. So with that being said, our cup is ready. So now we'll go ahead to add all the necessary allowances. For that point, 0.5 inch. On this point, 0.5 inch. Now at this point, go ahead to add 1 inch on all the sides. Now for this other part, 1 inch or 0.75 as well. At the upper side, 0.5 inch would definitely do. So with that being said, we'll go ahead to tape our cup with our masking tape to see the final result. And look what we have here. This is beautiful. This is perfect. So you can see the depth of our cup. You can see the consistency, the alignment on both sides. You could see how it synchronizes. This is perfect beyond perfection, and this is certainly what you'd come out with as your end result if you follow through the process, and of course you've gotten it right. So now moving back to the front block of our dartless corset, at our under bust point, which is where I'm labeling now, you're going to be dividing your bust span by 2, and you intake that value at your under bust point. Take it all the way down to your waist point, and lastly to your full blouse length point. So please, for this, go ahead to use your pencil for this purpose. Do not use your marker. You'd get to understand the reason for this. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect it into each other to form your straight line. So having done that, we'll go ahead to bring back our well-drafted dip cup. Now you see that line that we drew at that point, starting from our under bust point. You're going to be aligning the under bust point of your cup to that under bust point of your basic dartless corset bodice block. And now you could see the reason why we went ahead to label our pattern, our center front, our side front, our over bust point, and our under bust point. So now for the center front of our cup, we'd place it facing the center front of the basic dartless corset bodice block, and the side front facing the side front of the dartless basic bodice block, and of course the under bust point facing the under bust point as well. So with that being said, remember that we came in on our basic dartless bodice block by 0.5 inch at that point. So we're going to be aligning our center front bust cup on that point. So whatever we're going to be doing would definitely stop or start from that line. So this is it. We're going to be placing it from our under bust point this way. So you can see how it aligns on all the angles. Center front on that point line, the under bust at that point line, and our side front on that point line as well. So this is exactly what you want to get. Ensure it sits and blends into that line. Your under bust point for your cup blends into the under bust point of your basic dartless bodice block. Now go in with your tape and go ahead to hold all the parts down. So I've gone ahead to hold my center front point down. Now for my under bust point, I would go ahead to do same. So ensure you do not press your cup well at this. Now for your side fronts, please pay attention. For your side fronts, you are definitely going to shift rather, or arrange your cup in a proper manner. We do not want our cup coming out flat. Already our cup is taking a very deep effect. However, you still need to, guide it when you're transferring this to your basic dartless bodice block. So this is basically what I did at that point. Would go ahead to tape it down with our masking tape as well. So now you could see how beautiful our cup is sitting. We have our cup seated perfectly at our center front part. We have it seated perfectly at our under bust point, and we have it seated perfectly on our side. So this is the effect you definitely want to achieve. So having done that, now we'd go in with our marker and would go ahead to make or draw out a curve at all those points. So your curve is going to be exactly the curve of your cup. So basically, please take your time to do this and get your curve right. So that is what I'm doing at this point. Just watch what I'm doing and do go ahead to replicate same. So having drawn out our cup curve for our center front, now we'd go ahead on our side front to replicate that same process. So having traced out our cup curve on both sides, now at the upper side, which is your over bust point, you're going to be tracing out the cup curve that you have at that point. So please ensure that you trace out exactly what you have at that point. You do not want to leave any excesses, and you do not want any shortage either. So with that being said, I would go ahead to take off my masking tape, and now I would go ahead to reblend or recurve all the curve lines that we have at that point. So I'm going to be curving it, but before I do that, I would ensure that I blend that point in, which is basically what I'm doing now. Now, like I said, go in with your marker again to draw out that curve. So just blend all the parts in, perfect all the curves, and perfect all the cups on all the parts. If you have watched this video to this point, what are you waiting for? Hit on the subscription button, like, share, and follow for more. Having done that, bring back your cup again and size it on. So ensure that all the points aligns perfectly on all the parts. So basically this is it. Now go ahead to draw out that line, extend it all the way into your armhole point. And of course, these other parts, extend the center front line, starting bust cup line into your center front point. So with this being done, you've successfully transferred your ready-made cup into your pattern. So with that being done, we'd go ahead to bring our scissors, and we're going to be cutting off that part. So we're going to be taking off our front yoke firstly, which is the part which I'm cutting through. Just follow the cup curve that you imputed at that point and take it off. So at this point, I won't have to do much of the talking. Just sit back and watch as I take you through the process of eliminating those curves. So now we're going to be taking off this part, which we will be incorporating our cup to that point. So this is basically it for this point. And now I'm going to bring back my cup to size it, and you could see how perfect this is. You could see how all the points aligned perfectly. You could see how the center front sits, our front yoke, our under bust point, and of course our side front point. So you could see how perfect this came out, right? With that being said, we're going to keep this aside, and we're going to be working on the boning channel placement for our dartless corset. So basically, I'm going to be taking you through the process on how you're going to be placing your bones. Now, you see that point, which we marked our nipple to nipple span divided by 2. You're going to be taking it off, and that was the more reason why I said you should use your pencil for that point. Now, I'm placing my straight ruler this way. I would go ahead to mark out my first boning placement channel. So that is the first one. Now, for your second boning placement channel, you're going to be incorporating it all the way from your nipple to nipple point all the way down to your full blouse length point. So just watch what I'm doing and do go ahead to replicate same. And now for this point, we're going to connect it all the way down. So you could use a distance of 1 inch, 1.5 to 2 inches. It totally depends on your preference. And lastly, for this other side, we're going to be connecting it all the way in. So equally, you could make your boning placement channel straight, or you could place it in a slanted form, just like the way I'm placing mine at this point. Now we'd go ahead to label our pattern 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you'd need to label your pattern, which is basically this. And now for our back boning placement channel, we're going to be either placing it in a slanted form, or you could make it straight. It all totally depends on your preference, like I've always said. Now I'm placing my tape from my corset back opening. I'm going to be taking in 2 inches from that point. So taking 2 inches from that point, and we're going to be taking that line, we're going to be taking that point all the way down, which is basically this. So the essence of this is because we're going to be attaching an eyelet for our corset back opening. So for the lacing bar, we're going to be taking off 2 inches. And now having done that, we'll go ahead to connect all those points into each other to form a straight line. Now from that line again, we're going to be coming in by 2 inches. You could use 1.5, you could use 1 inch. It totally depends on the numbers of boning that you want to place for your back bodies. So whatever value that you have imputed on your waist point from that 2 inches line, go ahead to use that value all the way in. So I used 2 inches as a distance for mine, which is basically this. And now I've gone ahead to connect all those points all the way up and all the way down. Now go ahead to label it 1, 2, and 3. Voila! Your perfect dartless corset masterpiece is ready with your deep, well-crafted cup. So you can see the final effect and the outcome, how the full blouse length for both the front and the back body synchronizes perfectly. Your waist points, your under bust points, your bust points, and lastly your chest points. So this is the consistency you want to achieve. And now for our cup, you could see how perfect it sits both on our under bust, our center front, our side fronts, and lastly look at our front yoke. Now this is so beautiful. So this is the end result you'd want to achieve if you follow through the process, and of course you've gotten it right. So if there's any point in this video that you do not understand, please ensure to refer back to this video. Go ahead to rewatch it. You would certainly get it right. Trust me, this method is highly simplified. So with this being done, I've gone ahead to use my masking tape to hold down our cup to our bodies, and you could see how perfect this came out looking. Look at our underbust points now. It is seated exactly on the underbust point spot, and you could see the consistency that we have for both the center front, the side front. This right here is exactly what you get as your end result once you transfer your pattern into your fashion fabric. Thank you, and see you on my next video. Bye!